We're back. Yeah, one Wookiee was missing something. Doesn't matter. Okay, I put it to you now. Now, once again, I was thinking while you were talking.
From arguments that week.
War for the Overworld versus Dungeon Keeper. Spiritual Successor versus Original. I put it to you that the original Dungeon Keeper, Dungeon Keeper 1, is far superior to the sequel and to the spiritual successors, including Dungeons. It is superior because it is the original, and it had a simpler, better thing. It was a simpler time, and therefore an easier game. Whereas the new ones are too complex. They're trying to be all that and a bag of chips, and all they're doing is just making you confused and angry, especially Dungeons, because that just makes you want to commit genocide.
Yeah, well, Dungeons was terrible. Let's just scrap that from existence all round. Yes. Because nobody wants to defend that game.
And Overlord, I know someone who does, and Overlord was shite.
No, sorry, Overlord is the one I was thinking of.
Dungeons is also shite.
Overlord is the one where you build the dungeon for the heroes to come raiding in, hey?
No, that was Dungeons.
That's Dungeons, okay.
Overlord is the one where you have imps and you have to run around in third person with an army of imps. Things up.
Okay, yeah, I never
it turns
played
out
that
you're
one.
the good. Yeah, it turns out you're the good guy, not the bad guy.
So yeah, those two can be written off. So it's Dungeon Keeper.
Dungeon Keeper 1 and 2 and War for the Overworld.
Yeah.
Dungeon Keeper 1 is the best because it's the original and therefore it didn't complicate itself. It was a good, solid game. It used simple things. There was gold and that's it. There was no fancy mana. There was no summoning reapers and complex rooms and all this over-the-top shit. It was good, simple, efficient and perfect. And therefore the sequels and spiritual successors are stupid.
Okay, so it definitely deserves its respect because it started the franchise. But Dungeon Keeper 2 is to me the best because it took the core of one and then it added to it. It made it better. It didn't do too much extra, and it still kept the same sort of style and play of the game, but it incorporated what better improvements to computers had done to be a bit more of a game. And God, I had hours of fun playing that game.
First time I ever saw Dungeon Keeper 1 was in Theme Hospital. It's in the introduction. He's busy playing Dungeon Keeper on the computer.
Nice.
Before, as in the opening scenes. I wanted that game. I always said I need to have that in my life. It looks dark. It looks gloomy. It looks epic. It was good. But Dungeon Keeper 1 is the superior of everything because it was simplistic. Dungeon Keeper 2, you had to summon reapers, you had mana, you had a complicated traps and door system, it was a complicated torture chamber, everything was complex. And then War for the Overworld has made it even more so, with all the shrines and all the other crap you can capture. And we've seen you play War for the Overworld and you get completely confuzzled. It's too much. Dungeon Keeper 1, simple, elegant, efficient, superior.
Complicated doesn't mean bad. It adds to the... I mean, yes, I will admit right now I'm terrible at War for the Overworld because I'm not used to all the researches and upgrades and things you can get. And I often make the mistake of trying to play it as though it was actually Dungeon Keeper 2.
Yes, that's why you tunneled out half your own base, cutting your own walls out. Luckily they put the wall replacement spell.
Yeah, that came very useful to me.
That didn't help though, because Mothman still raped you. But
yeah, but that just because it was hard... I was confused because I didn't have enough experience in the game. If I actually had like a couple of weeks to just sit and play it, I would learn all the new mechanics.
You've got the game, you own it, get cracking. Why aren't you playing at home?
Time.
Hey, half an hour a night won't kill you.
Yeah, I suppose so.
One mission a night, and then at least you can give someone a decent challenge next time you record.
And then I'll get the hang of the skills and everything. But just because a game is hard doesn't mean it's bad. A game that's too easy and boring is bad. A game that's too hard can be bad, but at least a hard game you've got a goal, you're working to something.
I can go with that. It's very difficult to actually do this show at this point.
I think we need to not be polar.
No, we try and be bipolar or something, but we always end up in the same page within 5 seconds. I Yeah. I put it to you that the new Duke Nukem was so Duke Nukem, it was better than all the other Duke Nukems. It was the best form of Duke Nukem. It had all the good-looking boobs and all the penis jokes you've ever wanted. 14 years of Willy jokes we've been waiting for. And therefore it was better than Duke 3D and the other ones.
I haven't played the new Duke Nukem.
See, this is the problem. You don't play enough and Mothman's got... I could do this with Raven, but Raven would agree because he's got terrible taste.
Well, I haven't played the new Duke Nukem, so I'm just going to pull shit out of my ass.
Don't bother. What have you played? What have you actually played that's been modern in the last 10 years?
I've played recently. I've played a fair bit of the new Homeworld game.
Homeworld 2. Oh, bane of my existence. They had such potential, but they didn't grab it enough. And having that home ship thing just drove me insane after a while. I just wanted to set down on a planet and build up from there.
Did you ever play Deserts of Karak?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, Deserts of Karak's the new one. Did you ever play Cataclysm?
Yes, I did.
Well, at least there you got to build up because you had to slowly retrofit that whole ship piece by piece. From a mining ship into a mothership.
Argue. Here we go. Generals is the best of the entire franchise from all of them. Command and Conquer, Red Alert, Tiberium Wars, all that stuff. It's cool, but Generals is the pinnacle of that form of gaming. The graphics were superior, the combat system was epic, you had a lot of options, money system was easier to handle with no dilithium or rocks or anything stupid like that. And you had 3 very distinct factions.
Okay.
Therefore, that was the best thing they ever did.
Okay, this is one I can decently argue against.
Yes.
Okay, well, first of all, the resourcing was exactly the same.
Yeah, but the first one you had stupid glowy rocks. In this one, you had a big box of stuff. You went and picked up crates and took them home.
There's no difference between a guy going and picking up a crate, a guy going and picking up a crystal, or a guy going and picking up a rock. The thing goes to the place, picks up the thing, and comes back.
Yes, but it looked a lot better with helicopters flying in and carrying things away.
June had the fucking things
And
picking
June
up
as
the
well.
spice.
And June as well.
Although June doesn't technically count as a Command and Conquer game, it was still Westwood.
Yes, but it's one of Westwood's products, so we'll throw it in there as a fourth contender. June as well. The Generals was the best because of its combat, because of the diversity of faction, because of the diversity of tech trees, because of the abilities that all factions had. It made it so much more balanced than anything else Westwood had ever produced, and therefore was a superior form of game.
Well, Westwood didn't even produce Generals. EA did.
Yeah, but EA ate everything. They've consumed all companies.
Yeah, screw you, EA.
They are the fucking Borg. They're the Borg of gaming.
Well, basically, the things I will say is, yes, it had, at that point in time, it had the best graphics. I mean, obviously the Command and Conquer, the newest Command and Conquers have defeated that, but we won't even talk about CNC4.
Yeah, that as well. CNC4 is in that list.
Yeah, we won't even... CNC3 annoyed me in some respects.
Why?
They ignored Tiberian Sun. CNC3 tries to be a new CNC2. It's like the whole of Tiberian Sun just never happened. There's a few odd like Easter egg references, but I mean, you start CNC3, you go in, there's no General Solomon, there's no McNeil.
Uh-huh.
The GDI are suddenly all wearing blue uniforms instead of gold. There's no Walker units. Tiberian Sun showed the world as a completely desolate wasteland with no plant life except for the weird mutated stuff growing in small little clumps here and there, and it was just pure Tiberium. But then CNC3 you've got all these nice little gardens and built up cities, not these destroyed wastelands. It's like it looks like Tiberian Sun happens after CNC3, but it's the other way around. And there was no Anton Slavic. That annoyed me. Even in Kane's Wrath, where you play simultaneously to the end of Firestorm, Slavic gets referenced, but that's it. It's like, oh, he's dead. He has another guy. And suddenly the nod had become much more religious, as it were. I mean, yes, Kane was a charismatic leader and everything, but suddenly Nod went from this like military organization to a full-on cult. The Black Hand went from a special ops division to like warrior monks. But all of that, it was still a fun game, and it still had what makes Command and Conquer. It had a build bar on the side of the screen, where you click to start the thing and then click to place the thing. It had cinematic cutscenes with actual actors in it. All of these things Generals doesn't have.
It's true. I remember there's cutscenes with them animated. But Nod or GDI, they've always been, in every game, one's always OP to the other. And if you look at June, fucking Harkonnens were OP all the way.
Yeah.
Except in the original Battle for June, or whatever it was, June 2000. Then the Fremen, if you knew how to use them, were OP. I did some serious issue with Fremen. Genocide from the Fremen. Fremen-side genocide. I've taken out quite a few people with those. But yeah, there was no balance, whereas in Generals, the terrorists, the Americans and the Chinese are all equally strong and weak in the same sort of areas. They balance each other out.
To me, that makes a bad strategy. And I will counterpoint it to you that and I'll even go against myself. My favorite in the franchise is Tiberian Sun. But to me, the pinnacle of the franchise is probably Red Alert 1.
I would agree with that. Now explain to them. I'll be back in like 3 seconds.
Okay. So while Shadow's off doing his own thing, I will put it that Red Alert 1 is the pinnacle of the Command and Conquer franchise simply because of how they balanced the races by not balancing them. And what I mean is, if you look at that game, the Soviets had the strongest tanks, the strongest turrets, their infantry, their army were very strong, much more so than the Allied counterparts. But the Allies had much, much stronger naval units. The Soviets had almost no navy, they had the little subs. The Allies had a whole thing of destroyers and frigates. So you essentially had this cool thing where the Soviets were a land power, the Allies were a naval power. And on top of that, the Soviets, everything was straightforward. It was build a factory, build a tank goes to shoot stuff. Whereas the Allies, you had to use your brain a bit more, but you had things like spies and the spy satellite and the shroud generator, and you had to play tactically to counteract the strength.
But
Shadow's back.
The Chinese are superior in tanks, the Americans are superior with super weapons and airplanes, and the terrorist faction is superior with infantry and really nicely assembled quick defences, SAM sites and mobile bits and pieces and guys in felt tents.
So it does touch on that to a degree, I'll give you that much.
And therefore that makes it superior to where, say, Harkonnens were just OP with everything and the Ordos were completely useless, or where, you know, the Allies had all the fancy stuff and Yuri's boys could control your mind and not much else. They couldn't do much when they got bombed to shit or mowed down by snipers or what have you, long range.
As I say, Red Alert 2, I had a lot of fun with it over my childhood. It was a really fun to play game. But
it makes me old when you say that, over my childhood. I remember playing that when we were teenagers. Now I think back, you were probably still in primary school.
I played Red Alert 2 on a Windows 98 machine. I didn't even have XP.
So did I.
But the thing is, Red Alert 2 did water down with one thing that really made Red Alert cool, was the fact that the races were unbalanced, like I've just explained.
Mm-hmm.
Where the Soviets were a land power and the Allies were a naval power, and in land battles the Allies had to use either naval support or espionage to get the upper hand. Which made a nice unbalanced, and you had to use tactics and strategy and everything. And yes, Generals touches on that, but not enough that it stands out as a thing. And it still doesn't give it a Command and Conquer feel to it.
It felt a bit like it. Not much. There wasn't any Yuri in it, but or any
Kane.
as well, or
But I mean-
or any Ordos.
Emperor Battle for Dune, let's face it, is a very badly done game. It's got nice visuals, but the balancing was never right.
Oh, I mean, Emperor June 2000 was a hard game, very hard. Emperor was completely one-sided. It was so heavily done for Harkonnen that you can't do squat if you're not a Harkie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know and if you know how to just balance the right, was it Naiad tanks
Yeah.
and
All you
flipping-
needed was Harkonnen for their floating turrets to defend your base and spice fields. And then all you had to do was have the guild as an ally, so you could just pump out the Naib tanks and teleport all over the map and wipe out everyone with their... I mean, the Naib tanks were the overpowered, let's be honest.
Yes,
You took a Harkonnen without Naib tanks, there would still be a fight.
we did engage in a battle like that, but then Atreides Sonic stuff blows itself up. The ones in the back destroy the ones in the front. How many of my own Sonic tanks were obliterated before I could get there? I would send 50 at you, and then, because if I send them one at a time or in small groups, then you'd have obliterated them. So I send the whole mass, so you wipe out half, and then the other half wipe themselves out trying to shoot. That was completely
GDI
badly
Sonic
done.
tanks did the same thing.
That's badly done, though. But Sonic tanks were the only... Sonic weapons are the Atreides' secret weapon.
Yeah, because fucking David Lynch
It's
thought
his movie, yes. Cause
martial arts made he didn't want sand ninjas.
Sand
So
ninjas
he
were
changed
cool.
the martial arts into sonic weapons.
Which makes it good for a video game, but, you know, sand ninjas just doesn't sound good. Let's be honest, especially in this day and age, that would be seen as terrorists or something. But, right, how the hell are we going with this? Okay, I put it to you now, because I completely... Who gives a shit at this point? If you're still watching this crap, well done. Nobody watches our channel, not even we do. Empire Earth is superior to Age of Empires because more ages, more PopCap, and superior tech trees and resource management, whereas Age of Empires used to run out within an hour. Therefore, it made it for a boring game.
This will be an interesting one to do. Okay. So I would put it to you that by doing Empire Earth as over as it is, you've essentially trying to stretch the game too far. And you've got so much to squeeze into every single race for all the thousands of ages. It's just too much that there's no diversity apart from a couple stats boosts here and there. Now, I'm going to change your discussion slightly, and I'm going to change Age of Empires to Rise of Nations 1 because they make a better comparison. Because, yeah, Age of Empires, every Age of Empires game, and I love Age of Empires, has had 4 ages.
But Age of Empires, the creator went on to create Empire Earth. Hence why I chose it.
Yeah, but in that argument I would agree with you. Because Empire Earth does offer you so much more. But Rise of Nations it's close enough to Age of Empires because it's also made by Microsoft.
Yes.
And it's a good comparison to Empire Earth because you do go through almost as many ages. You do start as nomadic cavemen, and you end the game with like... Did Rise of Nations go into the future or did it stop in modern age? I can't remember now. But it was one of those two.
Mm-hmm.
But you had a grand span, like Civilization style.
Yes.
But you had race-specific units. It wasn't, well, more so than Empire Earth, which was a very rarity. Most of your races just had different stat boosts. But Rise of Nations, every race felt unique because they would look different. Their buildings would have different architecture styles. You know, if you played as an African, Middle Eastern or Indian nation, your people were darker skinned. Obviously, if you played as Asian or Indian, you had very oriental looking building styles. So the races felt more unique. you felt the grand scale of empire because you built a city. You didn't, and then you built buildings around that city, and then that was a town. And then you had to build another town like away, so you would actually grow up an empire. And like I say, I used to play as the Zulu mostly, and I used to have these, like your spearmen, instead of spearmen you'd have elite impi squads, which was cool. If you played as the British, your rifleman would be replaced by the Black Watch when you reached, which again wasn't perfect because you would get different units. Different races would have different specialist units in different ages. Like if you chose the Romans or something, you'd get your units in the Bronze Age, and by the time you reached the Modern Age, you didn't have anything unique to you anymore. So it's still not perfect, but I felt it gave you a more dynamic experience than Empire Earth did.
Speaking of which, I remember a game of Empire Earth of the Raven where he hit the Bronze Age and he built barbarians and Roman legionaries and such, and I focused purely on building. I actually took over 3/4 of the map. He was in a quarter of the quarter that was left. That's where he was hiding. He built a wall around his one town. I actually funded him. I gave him money just so he could get to the next age so I could kill him. But I remember that, as when that battle started, I sent up I don't even remember, dozens of just Titan nuclear bombers into his town, bombed him off the map, bombing ships, long-range Scud missiles. I had tanks all the way around, and he invaded my base with barbarians from the Bronze Age. They managed to get through the trees, obviously. So they ran into my farmlands and attacked my peasants, who probably dumped the whole lot down. Because I had very advanced... I think it was about World War II when I stopped and attacked him, and he just hit medieval. But I played another guy who similar routine, but he got all the way to modern age, but he still had his original like stone throwing cavemen. He had vast legions of them. Even though he had modern tech, he had no population space for it. And by the time he had space, I was already halfway through his base when he ran out of cavemen to chuck at me. So the resistance was...
That must have been quite the interesting...
Age of Empires 2, yes, that had a unique unit per person.
But Age of Empires 2 was the pinnacle of Age of Empires.
The buildings did share. I didn't like 3. We have played 3. We have had a lot.
3, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't Age of Empires enough. Which is fine because the franchise it had grown and they needed to change things up to be not just another generic copy of the first 2, and they shake things up a little bit here and there, and it wasn't perfect, but it was still a lot of fun.
But there now, yes, you just generic copy of the first, you say. What about Tiberium, whatever it was, Twilight, or the last one that came out? Totally different to the first 50,000 Things Westward ever did. Therefore, changing with the times, thus creating a better or newer gaming experience for the whole franchise.
Yes, within reason.
Haha, victory to me, I've won the argument.
Within reason. So, Age of Empires 3 to Age of Empires 2, let's say. As soon as that's what brought us into this. Age of Empires 3 still had a lot of the same mechanics as Age of Empires 2. It just tweaked a few things and added stuff. Command and Conquer 4 turned Command and Conquer into Company of Heroes. It completely replaced the entirety of the game mechanics. I don't know enough about the story to argue that, but I do remember hearing a lot of people complaining about how the story went. But I'll go just on the pureness of the game. You lost the entirety of your base building. You literally had to go like...
You had a single command building thing, a bit like that space game we were discussing 10 minutes ago.
Overworld.
That's it, yeah. Again, you've got a primary and then you have to build from there subsections.
And if I remember correctly, you also had much like smaller units with heavy tactical focus rather than building up a proper army like normal.
I remember it vaguely.
I played it once and it was like, nah.
But you mentioned another game, Company of Heroes. Is that not the pinnacle of World War II strategy gaming? Tanks, cars, planes, bombs, we've seen it all. Especially Company of Heroes 2. Intense fighting. You know, say that is the pinnacle
Of World War II games.
yes.
Yeah, I could go with that.
As long as it's the special edition one, I suppose.
Well, I mean, okay, the only other one that I could argue is Close Combat, which I was actually sitting there like, World War II games, World War II games.
Yeah, Close Combat was
Okay, Close Combat was good, so...
definite. Well, in Close Combat...
To me, though...
You had fatigue in Close Combat, so I remember Cave Troll and I played, and I invaded as the Germans and drove him all the way back to Moscow. But by the time I got there, I had one division fighting in Moscow. Everyone else I had to keep retiring divisions. There was one battle where him and I started the battle and instantly declared truce, just so we could give our guys a chance to rest and recover.
Yeah. The thing that Close Combat had over Company of Heroes was the fatigue system, the fact that your squads had ammo, the fact that your squads, every single person was a person. They had a name, they had a rank, they got experience. The buildings were more dynamic. The fact you could actually maneuver your guys around within the buildings, that you didn't just garrison the building. And I think the control mechanics were very well tuned, with like using a mortar to fire half the map.
Yeah, I do recall.
You could do heavy covering fire, smoke grenades, that type of thing. And you could do a very in-depth, very tactical battle. The cons to Company of Heroes and its things were the way it forces you into very fast battle. You know, you have to capture the road, you have to capture the waypoint, you have to...
As we saw with you and Mothman, you were still
trying
to figure out what you were doing, and he'd taken half the map.
Yeah, it's like you have to be quick, you have to capture, you have to do stuff. Think, react, don't
Thing about Company of Heroes, though, is once you get to a certain point, you're pretty much guaranteed to win.
Yeah, because you're then getting all the resources.
Whereas in Close
Combat, you basically committed the troops to the battle, and then you had to do the battle with what troops you had on either side.
Very much like Empire, the Total War series is the reason I like them.
Yeah.
Because once the battle's over, then your history, your choices move from there. No, I like that argument. They're good, but it's definitely better than Iron Hearts. Jesus.
God, that game was terrible.
Oh, that was the third in the franchise. I mean, what we need to get is Silent Hunter. The submarine games.
I don't have those, but I do have another one that I can get us.
Okay.
It's a pretty decent simulation. I mean, accurate enough that I could never actually hit another ship because I put my torpedoes, triangulation vectors and things not calculated correctly.
We're fucked already. The three of us, rebellion twats.
The cool thing was the game came with a text integrated with a speech voice recognition. So you could literally be like, hold down spacebar, like, go to engineering deck, or go to bridge, take me to 400 meters depth, and you could actually like tell the game like you were the captain giving orders to the crew.
That could be very entertaining. You get Ozzy Osbourne to play that with us. What? Launching torpedoes. Yeah. Ship self-destruct or activated. We haven't got one, you do now, bitch. That would be great if we can get a Star Trek and a Star Wars game like that.
And there is actually kinda a Star Trek game like that.
And we'll discuss that in the next episode. Ciao for now.